I always like to say, I love food. Who doesn't love food? I mean, I married a chef. I mean, come on now. I love food. So that's, people always say, why did you get into nutrition? I said, because I love food. And I like working with people, and I want to help people make healthy food choices. And so when we were asked to, this is actually getting a little pair off together, I thought, now I'm going to put my husband's culinary, challenge him. So you think you can cook. Not just dance, but cook. Chefs, he's trained in French cooking, and that's a lot of butter and salt and cream. And so I said, all right, let's see how well you can cook. Let's recreate these delicious foods, but in a heart-healthy way. And I felt bad because he would come up with all these ideas, and I would say, I know.
So deep frying's out, I guess. We can't do that here.
He was like, can we smother it in butter and then add cheese on top? Well, it is a cardiac health for women night. I just don't think that's the best thing to do. So, yeah, it's not really fun living with me.
Yeah, we go grocery shopping together, and I'll grab the regular sour cream off the shelf, and then Julia will look at me and say no, and she'll put it back and grab the low-fat sour cream. So I've learned that cooking good food is when we're cooking at home together, which we do a lot happily. I say that very carefully, you'll notice. But it's I've learned a lot from Julia in terms of how to figure out how to make foods taste really, really good, but cut back on the salt and the fat, and then when she's not looking, I add some in for myself.
Well, and the other question I always get is, oh, you're married to a chef, you must eat really well. And well, for the past 9 years, he's been in the kitchen at nighttime.
True.
So as a mom and working part-time, when I think easy, I think 30 minutes or less.
Yeah.
So for me, I want something easy to do. You come home from work, the last thing you want to do is to be thinking of a long,
slaving
meal.
over a hot stove for 2 hours.
So everything we have prepared, or Ben has come up with tonight to prepare, is heart-healthy, hopefully delicious, and easy to make.
Yeah.
And that's really the idea, because that's what we really need, is something that's going to, everyone wants sort of the answer to the diet, and the diet is what we can do and what we can add into our lives, which makes sense.
Yeah. I think one of the first things both of us really feel strongly about in terms of eating well, but also eating in a healthy way, is paying attention to the seasons. I mean, we live in New England, so it's fairly obvious usually. Today's an exception, of course, because it was 95 degrees out. But it's usually fairly obvious what time of year it is. And so pay attention to what's in season, what's fresh. And that's a really great place to start from a cooking standpoint, so that your food is delicious and fresh, but also from a healthy eating standpoint. I mean, it's, yes, we can get asparagus in January, but it might not have as much nutrients in it because it's spent a week on an airplane or getting here. So for example, one of the first things I wanted to show you guys was, and I think it's something you had on the table, is the English peas on toast. Really simple to make, very, very easy. There's very little fat, just a little olive oil, and everything is fresh. So fresh English peas, which are right now in season, and and I don't mean to sound like maybe nobody here's seen a fresh English pea, but sometimes people haven't, because we're so used to going to the grocery store and getting something frozen in a bag, which is okay as well. So these are fresh English peas, and we just open them up and scoop them out. And these beautiful little guys, when they're really, really fresh, they're very sweet. So what I did with these is and I have a dish of them that we prepared a little earlier. We just cooked these in boiling water for about 2 minutes, just quick enough to get them to become tender. Refresh them in ice water to stop the cooking process. They stay nice and bright green that way as well. And then drain the water out of them. Once the water's drained out, which is where we are with these right now, you can take a fork or a wooden spoon and just mash them. Or if you have a food processor, if you're making a large amount, if you have a food processor at home, just stick them in the food processor and just buzz them. The blade will spin around, they'll kind of mash up, and it'll take much less time. If you don't have one, the back of a fork is perfect.
Now, one thing that Ben has taught me a lot that I'm sort of learning is, there's always the question about flavoring our foods. and not adding lots of salt. I mean, everything has salt in it, and it's always so, how do we make things taste good without just loading salt in it? And so that was another thing we sort of worked on together, creating these menus, was it's easy just to throw a bunch of salt and have it taste good, but we want to add other flavors. And where Ben has taught me is using herbs and different acidities to help bring out flavors in the food without adding the actual salt. So he's used a lot of different flavors in this dish alone with the mint. Is that you're doing mint?
Yep, so I have, that's exactly right. I have some diced raw red onion, so a little bit of that, some chopped fresh mint, a little bit of chopped fresh parsley, and that's exactly right. I mean, and then 3 tablespoons of cream cheese. Oh, no, wrong recipe. No, so yeah, fresh, as Julia said, it's exactly right. Fresh herbs, acidity, so, you could certainly use lime juice in this, but I think lemon is a little more appropriate. If you don't have lemon juice and you have Chardonnay vinegar, perfect. One thing I always like to say quickly is, when you're looking at recipes, just from a cooking standpoint, don't feel like a recipe's carved in stone. Unless it's like a pastry dessert or something like that where you do kind of need to follow a recipe. If it's a savory dish and the recipe calls for lemon juice, but you don't have lemons, but you have a vinegar, use the vinegar. It'll probably be just as good. And
on the same note, with a lot of these dishes, I mean, I have patients all the time that come in and I say, all right, let's figure out how we can recreate that in a heart healthy way. And there's often ways that you can create these meals that might ask for, was it the 3 pounds of cream cheese you wanted to add?
Yeah, exactly.
But there's every dish can be recreated in a more heart healthy way. So I mean, I always look at what you see in the dish and see about if there's different ways. And this we obviously took out anything, but initially when he created this, he had the ricotta cheese, which is on the toast, and I said, well, let's use part skim ricotta. And you wanted to add
instead of whole milk ricotta.
Instead of the whole milk ricotta, and he wanted to add, I think, cream in the dish, but we
just took it out.
Took it out. So there's definite ways you can make small, and again, without adding salt, we used the herbs and the onions. So
yeah, things like raw onions, raw fresh herbs, acidity, even the zest. I added a little bit of grated lemon zest. The natural oils in citrus zest are really flavorful. A lot goes a long way. So you get a little bit more of that lemony flavor. And so you're just adding a whole bunch of flavor into this without any fat. And salt, I did add a little pinch of salt. That's up to you how much you guys want to add to taste or whatever whatever you'd like. And then some fresh pepper. Heat is also very nice. A little chili. A couple drops of Tabasco sauce, perhaps. It's not in this, but there's no reason why you couldn't add it. All of those things will heighten flavors and make it more tasty.
And I think when you're dealing with salt, I usually tell my patients that when you make it from scratch, you get to determine the amount of salt that's actually in it, versus when you get foods that have been pre-processed and they sort of determine the salt for you. But in these dishes, him adding a little bit of salt is going to be significantly less than if you were to go out and get someone to have it make it for you. You'll realize that actually you need a lot less than they might add in a pre-prepared item. So, and something about peas, as Ben said, they're local now. Peas are a great source of soluble fiber, which is soluble fiber is often talked about with cardiovascular disease and lowering cholesterol. So that's these are fresh peas, and having them in a fun way, and knowing that they're also benefiting your heart. So something to think about too. I mean, you think, oh, if I'm eating well. I mean, I see so many cartoons. But if it's good for you, it's got to taste bad. But that's really the challenge, is trying to figure out a way to. Beautiful presentation and delicious.
And I just finished them with a little bit of finely grated Parmesan cheese. It's not a lot, so there is a little bit of that dairy there. But Parmesan has got such a nice, strong flavor. So again, a little goes a long way. So that's it on that one. It's very straightforward and pretty easy.
And if I would have I'm going to have sort of heart-healthy tips to sort of take home. And I'd say probably the number one thing to take home, and on you've got pieces of papers, handouts. One of them says balance your plate. And if the take-home message here is every meal, bulk it up with fruits and vegetables. If you can buy local, great. Frozen. I'm a fan of frozen in the wintertime when you don't have time to cook and you want to buy, get vegetables, frozen is fine. It's actually, a lot of the nutrients are preserved when it's frozen. So, one take-home message is every meal, think of what you're eating. Are there lots of color on your plate? All the fruits and vegetables are giving lots of good nutrients that you need and also good amounts of fiber. So even at breakfast time, think, can I get fruits and vegetables at breakfast? Am I having just a sandwich? Can I add fruits and vegetables into my sandwich? At dinner time, even if it's just pasta, ways can I add more fruits and vegetables to pasta? So just look at your plate, and there's lots of color on it. And as I said, I love that diagram, and it's very sort of elementary. You look at it and say, okay. But look at your plate every night. Does it have half the plate coming from a fruit or vegetable? Mostly vegetables at dinner, but at breakfast, maybe fruit.
I do want to just take this moment to take a quick side note and mention that 2 years ago for Christmas, my nutritionist wife gave me a countertop fryolator. So I thought either she really loves me or she wants me to kick the bucket. I don't know. I can't figure out which is which here. But.
And he gave me a membership to a gym, so
I love my fryolator. All in moderation. That's exactly
all
right.
in moderation. He used it for the first week. It was kind of like the new toy the kid gets. He used it literally for the first week. He was like, what can I fry with? And I was like, okay, we're putting the fryolator away.
Step away from the fryolator.
Yeah, step away from the fryolator.